Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit and welcome to my After Hour Lounge. Today we're going to be kicking back in a nice big velvet chair in front of the fire with some DICETINY, the Lord of the Dice. Okay. The genre, I suppose, is well described right underneath. Here we got open world wannabe card boiled RPG, whatever that means. But it's relatively accurate, actually. It is a mixture of board game, dice game. There's actually not really much dice in it at all, but I'll get to that in a minute. And a collectible card game, and it is fully single player, no multiplayer, and it's also not free to play either, so don't worry about microtransactions or anything along those lines. You are set to go through an adventure with your deck of cards, a choice of 4 different classes, and it's brought to you by a company called Fakedice Incorporated, I believe, which I'm fairly sure is a false name for a company. I'm pretty sure there were another company prior to that. Well, let's jump into this. I've been playing this actually for a couple of hours, and I've been enjoying what is certainly a flawed experience, no doubt about that, but it has a nice little charm to it, and it's quite compelling. And I think the reason for that is probably down to the fact that it's very similar to a game called Concept, which is not particularly well known. There was a couple of games in that series. Started off in Japan on the Saturn, if I recall correctly. There was a Concept Saga on the Xbox 360 that was made into English, and I believe the original Concept was brought onto DS at some point. The game was basically a mixture of Magic the Gathering and Monopoly. This game's got a little bit of that, and a couple of other things besides. So this is the world map. This is not a mobile port, for those wondering. It does have the 3-star system, but it is not a mobile game. It's a bit weird, actually, because it works very well on mobile. In fact, I'd happily play this on mobile, but it is PC first. So this is the hero that I am currently playing. I believe all of the heroes are just this Conan-style barbarian dressed in different hats and makeup, which I find to be fairly amusing. If we head over to the camp system right here, this is where you see your hero in the corner, and you're able to edit your deck as well as buy new cards, and you buy them with the in-game currency gems. Again, no microtransactions, all acquired through gameplay. You have a party set up, so I believe I can actually put another character in here. The Fellowship of the Dice, it can go up to 3 characters, and they have different abilities, so you can swap between them. You could take different decks into different encounters. If you're having problems with a certain class and deck, you can make another one and add it to your Fellowship right here. Let's just dive right into some gameplay and show you what's going on with it. Like I say, it is enjoyable. It's just by no means perfect. I think it may very well have some fairly serious problems with it, but let's jump on in and see what's going on with it. So as I mentioned, it's single player, so you're going to be running into these storyline-based things. Help, I'm being kidnapped for whatever reason. And, okay, that's why we're fighting. So, each of the different single-player encounters has a different shaped board, and it usually has some random tiles on it as well. You can see the cards being drawn there from the hand. As I said, it's a bit of a mix between a card game and a board game. At the start of the game, you get to choose a bonus. I'm going to choose an action point bonus. You get more action points every turn. That allows you to play more cards. That is my character down there, and in the corner. Isn't he beautiful? And this is your board. The board has a couple of different things on it. It's got a couple of enemy creatures. If I run into these, I'm going to have to fight them. These guys actually have taunts, so I'm going to have to fight them regardless of whether or not I land on the square. That banded leader does not. Get rid of that. You'll notice there's a little spell tower there. If I actually take control of this, my spells will cost 1 less AP. This is a minion card shop. There's a black hole over there. And this stuff tends to change on a game-by-game basis. So, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spend some gold, and that allows me to draw an extra card. There are 2 resources, action points and gold. Action points are used to cast spells. Gold is used to either draw another card once per turn, or you can actually use it to bribe creatures that are on the board. So if you've got enough gold, you can actually bribe them, and they'll switch allegiance to you, so you don't have to fight them. Alright, I'm going to use Brain Burst to draw some extra cards. There we go. Nice little animation there. I do wish you could skip them, because as nice as they are, some of the animations do take a little bit too long. Now, after that, I can either use my hero ability, which is Blink, but I don't have AP to do that, so I'm going to roll the dice and see where I go. 1, 2, and we have to fight this monkey, which I kill. Basically, it's whatever the level of the creature is versus your attack. If you don't kill it, it sticks around. If you do, you get rid of it, and you also usually gain some money for killing it, but I don't think you gain it for that explosive monkey or whatever, and then you end the turn. And it's when the other character's going to move there as well. Now, once you've lapped the board and passed this idol right here, you get a lap bonus, so like passing Go in Monopoly. And that will give you a bonus depending on what class you're playing. So I think with my class, it's like I get extra AP and a card draw from it or something like that. And usually, it's a case of kill the enemy hero or fulfill what objective is at the top, which in this case is just defeat them. But sometimes there are different ways of doing that don't involve reducing their HP down to 0. You see my HP down at the bottom there. You can get armor just like you can in like a game like Hearthstone or anything like that. Alright, I'm going to put a Hex Drinker down here. That is a creature. That's going to also increase in size every time I cast a spell. Now, you'll notice I've got 1 mana left, and I can't really do anything with that. Well, that's unfortunate. So what I can do, or at least what I could do if I hadn't landed in prison, is I can use my extra AP. I can take one of these and put it in the equipment slot, and that's going to spend that AP on reducing the cost for it the next time I want to use it. And that's an extra little slot, because usually you only have 5 slots before it starts discarding cards and put them at the bottom of the deck. Alright, I'm going to be running into any of these bandit leaders, most likely. I'm just looking at my dice roll here, and it's like, well, there's some meerkats here. I do have a little bit of cash, but probably not enough to bribe. I might be able to bribe the meerkat, but I can't bribe the bandit leaders. So maybe some chicken lightning might do the job. So I'm actually going to blow that up. There we go. Cast a spell. Blow it up, and that's also going to hit a couple of other random squares as well. It also buffs up my creature over there. So you can see the sort of Monopoly comparison, can't you? Because you're taking control of parts of the board, and the more stuff you have down on the board, the more likely it is that the enemy's going to land on it. Let's buy a card, but first we have to fight him. There we go. And I took a huge amount of damage from that, so don't land on him if possible. What can I afford? I can afford a Ghost King. That might be good for killing off something pretty tough. There we go. And end the turn. So the card art's really quite nice. I actually really like the art style of the game in general. But there is definitely something that is going to be very much an acquired taste. And that's the fact this game is full of internet references. You may have noticed, like the meerkats, for instance. There are some even more obvious ones, like that Pepe Frog thing that people post, and there's even a reference to Gabe Newell and all that sort of thing. Some of that can be pretty cringeworthy because it's right on the nose. I mean, it really comes down to how sensitive are you, I suppose, to internet humor references. I feel they very much date a game, and I don't generally think it's a particularly good idea to use them when you can avoid it, simply as a direct result of that. Sometimes it's alright, simply because it doesn't really matter if you don't get it. Like the meerkats, for instance. Like, okay, that is an internet reference, but does it matter? No, it's just a meerkat, you know, it's not a big deal. But the Gabe Newell thing, a lot of people aren't going to get. The Pepe Frog and all sorts of things like that are probably going to make people roll their eyes somewhat. It's a little bit of a weird mixture, because obviously they went for a very humorous game, but they mixed it in with internet references, which are, for the most part, generally not funny, but, you know, that's a personal preference on my part. I can generally get over it, though. You know, it's not a gigantic deal. I'm not massively concerned about the fact that there are a bunch of internet references in this game, but it is something that grates sometimes. You see there, I can put down a creature on top of an enemy creature as long as I'm adjacent to it, and I can get it out of the way, so that's probably a pretty good idea. I'm going to roll the dice, and that should hopefully allow us to lap, and I'll gain a lap bonus. Very nice. If you land on your own minion, you can empower them. You can either give them Taunt, which means that nobody can run past them, which sounds like a good idea with a 5. He's a level 5, so he's pretty tough. Or you can empower them with an extra level, assuming that you have the cash to do so. Alright, I'm out of IP. Let's end the turn. So that's basically how the game works. Once you get to turn 10, it enters a, I wouldn't say a sudden death scenario, but there is an element of that. It basically reduces your HP by 1 every turn, so it'll eventually end the game. End up fighting me rather than my creature, which was a little annoying. I took a huge amount of damage. I didn't really want that. That is unfortunate, but hey. Oh, and now the board is completely covered in thugs. Yeah, I think you get the idea, though. As I said, if you've ever played Concept, and a lot of people have not, I certainly don't blame them for that, then yeah, you're gonna get this really, really quickly. Even if you played a CCG, you'll probably get the idea. The board is more of a random element than anything else. You know, it's not a massively important part of the game, but it is the random component of the game which is probably going to screw you over the most. I've had a situation where an enemy hero was able to build up their attack to something ridiculous like 25, and then I had a 1 in 6 chance of landing on him. I landed on him and instantly died. That's obviously pretty damn irritating when it happens, and I think some people will be extremely annoyed by that, and whether or not you're able to tolerate that level of randomness is going to determine, I think, whether or not you enjoy this game a lot. But I do enjoy the card collection. I do enjoy the fact that every board is different, and there are a bunch of different victory requirements and random things that you can find on the board. There's a bunch of different tiles and creatures and enemy types to fight. That's all particularly awesome. And I think the card collection and the deck building is, again, also very, very enjoyable. You can have a 20-card deck, and I think you have a limit of 2 cards per. And, of course, you can buy cards and things like that, as well as earning them through the chests that you get from everything that you run into at the end of each level. You get a reward at the end, which is both gems and a chest with cards in it. And it's generally fun to collect cards and play a different encounter every time. I dig that. I think that's great. And as a result, it seems to have a great deal of replayability, which I'm pretty happy about. Although, again, the randomness can certainly be a little annoying. I do like the fact that they have taken some liberties with the design in order to try and limit that randomness. For instance, you know, the idea that you can, as long as you've got enough gold, I can hire this enemy instead of fighting it. Because if I had 3 HP and I had to fight that meerkat, then that meerkat kills me. So you can mitigate the randomness of having a run of bad luck of landing on a bunch of enemy creatures by having money and spending them in order to do that. In order to try and allow you to move more, you often have movement-based abilities and cards, which are always nice to use. So that, again, helps to mitigate some of the randomness, and as far as I can tell, there isn't too much overall random play going on within the cards themselves. Most of them are generally very reliable in terms of the amount of damage they do, which is nice. So it's like, look, the game already has enough randomness as it is. You don't need to throw any extra in there. So I do appreciate them thinking that one through a little bit. But the movement, it is still something that could completely screw you over. There's no real doubt about that. So do try and keep an eye on that. And if that's not your sort of thing, then that may very well annoy you. And the games can drag on a little bit. So as a result, if you end up having a run of bad luck, you can have a 10 to 20 minute game ruined by the fact that you landed on 2 of the wrong things at the wrong time. What is your level of tolerance for that? Well, that's a good question. Sometimes in single-player games, a bunch of randomness isn't really that bad. That's not actually a horrible thing at all, whereas in a multiplayer game, you might find that incredibly frustrating. It's entirely possible. And then some people think of it the other way around, that as long as you have a bunch of friends to play with and you can laugh over the RNG screwing you over, then that's really not too bad. Some people think that way. And, you know, when you think about it, that also makes a great degree of sense as well. So it's very much up to your particular personal preferences. Just going to drop a meteor shower on that area there. I would say the animation quality is great. There's some awesome effects, really great card art. Again, the internet references and memes are a little bit questionable, but I can tolerate them. They're not obnoxious enough to really make me hate the game. So it's flawed, no doubt about it. I think the AI could definitely use some work. I've played against some enemies that just don't really seem to do a lot of sensible stuff. Like, they'll be able to do a bunch of damage to me, instead they decide to take half the HP off a random creature that's halfway across the board. I have no idea why they would do something like that, or they would just make the decision that I would just consider to be plain wrong. And since it is a single-player game, AI problems are certainly a factor. You know, it's not something that you want to ignore. But generally speaking, it's been a fairly enjoyable little experience. I think for $15, it's not too bad. It seems like there's plenty single-player content. Oh, for God's sake. If you can tolerate this random element to it that can completely screw you over from time to time. It is a nice little combination, and yeah, it's something of a concept ripoff, but frankly, We don't have Concept on PC in the first place, and it was never a particularly popular game in the West to begin with, so I don't think that is necessarily a bad thing. Trying to bring that concept over to PC is, as far as I'm concerned, probably a very good thing indeed. I want to pass this or enter it. Yeah, we'll enter it. Buy ourselves a Hell Gatekeeper. Can I zap him and finish him off here? If I play Empower Spell, and I think I'm in Lightning Bolt range, let me just Lightning Bolt him, and GG. There we go. And now you can see at the end of the game, you get this ridiculous storyline, which again is full of silly references, and, you know, the writing is certainly not the strength of this game. And you get your chest and your gems, and you're generally rewarded based on your performance, and get a bunch of different classes that you can play with. I don't know why you keep clicking that, but hey. That's the essence of what DICETINY is. It's not too shabby. I've been having fun with it for the last few hours. Certainly flawed, definitely got its problems, but on PC anyway, the format is relatively original. Just ignore that Concept exists, and I think you'll have a grand old time with it. $15 of your regional equivalent is what it's going to cost to grab this on PC. My name has been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, by all means do feel free to click the like button. If not, the dislike button is right over there. And I'll see you next time.